Welcome back, my friends. Currently, we're on day 361 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and President Zelensky gave a dire warning to the Munich Security Conference. So, Russian President Putin will not stop with the invasion of Ukraine, with other former Soviet countries likely to be the next in his sights. That's the warning from President Zelensky, who yesterday made the opening address at the Munich Security Conference. This conference is a gathering of politicians, military officers, and diplomats from around the world to discuss European defense and diplomacy. We did get some interesting announcements at this conference. The United Kingdom is going to give Kyiv longer-range weapons. Exactly what long-range weapon system remains unknown, but the UK states it is going to be the first country to commit such a capability to Ukraine. So currently, the Ukrainians have Gimlers with an 80-kilometer range launched from HIMARS. The United States has announced GLSDB with a 150-kilometer range, but those haven't arrived in the country yet. So perhaps Ukraine might get a missile system from the UK that can go 250 or 300 kilometers. Here is British Prime Minister Sunak speaking at the Munich conference.
We need a military strategy for Ukraine to gain a decisive advantage on the battlefield, to win the war, and a political strategy to win the peace. To win the war, Ukraine needs more artillery, armoured vehicles, and air defence. So now is the moment to double down on our military support. When Putin started this war, he gambled that our resolve would falter. Even now, he is betting that we will lose our nerve. But we proved him wrong then, and we will prove him wrong now.
Bravo, very well said. And President Zelensky made it clear there is no alternative for European leaders aside from a complete Ukrainian military victory. Putin is not going to de-escalate or take an off-ramp. There is no peace talk agreements that, if signed by Putin, that he would actually honor. If there is a armistice or a freeze in the conflict and Russia is allowed to keep territory, then they're just going to attack Ukraine again in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever. Russia wants to pause the conflict, hold on to something, and then build up military arms to just go back for more in the future. So European leaders are finally on the same page. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen calls for doubling down on military support for Ukraine. I saw the UK Prime Minister say the same thing, so this might be the new buzzword, doubling down. And we did get a strong statement from German Chancellor Scholz calling on allies to provide the Leopard tanks to Ukraine now. Do not delay. Germany is not going to be the reason why Leopard 2 tanks are not being expedited to Ukraine. We also got a strong statement from President Macron. Western countries will increase aid to Ukraine in the coming months and weeks so that the armed forces can go on the counteroffensive in order to win. That is the part where a negotiation process will begin once all Russian forces are expelled from Ukrainian territory. And here is a recent poll that came out of France showing what French support looks like for Ukraine. 65% are in favor of sending military aid, while only 33% oppose. This is a comparable number to here in the United States, and it's worth remembering that Putin's master plan this winter was to freeze Europe, to cut off gas and oil supplies so that prices spike, and then in democracies, pressure is put on their elected leaders to stop supporting Ukraine. This winter is almost over, and Putin's master plan of causing chaos and turmoil in democracies isn't working. This is bad news for Russia. President Biden is also heading to Europe this week. He's going to give a speech in Poland on the one-year anniversary Zelensky is going to be there. It's going to be probably also with the Polish president. And also at the Munich conference, Senate Majority Leader Democrat Chuck Schumer and Senate Minority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell, they traveled together. They sat together. This is great news. It warms my heart as an American. Democrats and Republicans can hate each other and fight each other on any domestic issue. But when it comes to national security and the security of our NATO allies, I want to see bipartisan cooperation. I want to see them working together, and I'm happy to be seeing this in the United States Senate. And here's more good news. The first group of Ukrainians have finished advanced U.S. military training in Germany. So the first group of 635 Ukrainian fighters have finished a 5-week advanced U.S. training course in Germany on sophisticated combat skills and armored vehicles. So back in early January, I guess 635 Ukrainian soldiers were selected to go to Germany to start training on the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. Hopefully they're learning other skills and taking in as much as they can before returning to the front lines. But this rotation is now going to repeat every 5 weeks. Every 5 weeks, I guess another 600 Ukrainian defenders will go to Germany to train with the United States in order how to operate and maintain all of these armored vehicles that the United States is sending to Ukraine. I also want to share this picture that General Dynamics put out of the production of 155 millimeter artillery rounds in Scranton, Pennsylvania. The money is there, the contracts is there. I'm confident that General Dynamics will be able to meet the demands for war this year and increase production of 155 millimeter artillery rounds. They're also currently in the process of starting up a factory in Texas to once again produce more artillery rounds for Ukraine. Let's now talk about Bakhmut. Bakhmut continues to hold. Not a lot of changes in the front lines as Prigozhin and the Wagner group were cut off. The regular Russian military and all the other various groups from the DPR, LPR, the Chechens, it's hard to keep track of them all. But they're competing for limited resources. If the regular Russian military wants to go on the offensive in other locations, they're going to cut off the supply for the Wagner mercenaries because they want the artillery rounds and ammunition for themselves. So here's an update from one of my favorite defenders. His name is Roman. He's currently fighting somewhere close to Bakhmut. Here's his update from this week.
Hi, voices for Ukraine. It's February now, but it feels like really spring. Warm weather, it's only -2 degrees, and it feels so hot compared to previously night. It was -11, -13. So we're preparing for storm enemy's position near Bakhmut, and we getting ready because this early morning it's gonna be very tough and hard. But we must retake our position and help our another department, another units to not be surrendered. That's why we will go to the counter attack. Look how cool it is. We drink hot tea and sitting in trench. Everything nice, guys. Everything is okay.
I'm always impressed by the positive attitude that these Ukrainian defenders continue to maintain. Another clip I want to share with you is of Macer Gifford. He is a British citizen who has been fighting in Ukraine for the last year. He's currently stationed with the 131st Recon Battalion. And this is his update video from yesterday I want to share with you guys.
Hi guys, I thought I'd do a quick update from Ukraine. I'm currently in Independence Square in Kyiv, which is a place I'm very familiar with. It's a very beautiful place. I think the last time I was here was exactly a year ago. I don't know if you know this, but I was actually in the country, in the capital, when the war started. And yeah, it was an intense time, a crazy time. I'd come to volunteer, I'd come to train people in TCCC and medical care. I'd come to raise awareness, encourage more support for Ukraine and everything else. And I wasn't expecting the war to start, if I'm honest. After meeting a number of members of parliament and other peace activists here, they simply didn't believe that Russia would do what it's done, and that is invade, devastate the country, commit acts of horrendous mass murder in places like Bucha and in other places. And it was a crazy time, and it's an honor to be back. The plan now is to liaise with some old friends.
So I've been following Macer on Twitter for almost 6 months. He currently follows me. In his video that he put out this morning, he shaved his beard, but he's calling for funds for his units. They have some new members and they'd like to buy some equipment for them. If you want to support Macer Gifford, I'll include the link to his fundraising page for his units, as well as his Buy Me a Coffee account if you want to send $5 his way. He's been risking his life on the front lines, fighting for almost a year now, and he has my respect and admiration. I'll put the links both in the description and the pinned comment down below. So what is Russia's response as we approach the 1-year anniversary of their invasion of Ukraine? And Russian envoy claims West is determined to destroy Russia. A week before the anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin's UN ambassador has claimed the West is driven by its determination to destroy Russia. Nobody was threatening you, Russia. Everyone in Europe, it's apparent now, everyone in Europe wanted to continue buying your energy exports. They wanted to conduct business as normal. Nobody was threatening Russia. Nobody was ever going to attack a country with 6,000 nuclear warheads. The fact that NATO has not joined the war, with all the justification you could argue that they should, this proves that nobody was threatening Russia, and this was a war of choice. So let me share a couple headlines with you from a year ago. This is an article on RT News. Kudos to Russia for not taking down their own old absurd propaganda. But this article is from February 15th, 2022. Here's the title. West has been destroyed without a shot fired. The Russian Foreign Ministry has announced February 15th as the day Western propaganda failed. I know a year thinking back this might be difficult to remember, but as Russia was amassing their troops on the border, the West was raising alarms. They were making statements saying Russia's going to do it, Russia's actually going to do it this time. And Russia the whole time was denying it, claiming that the West was absurd and they were warmongering and that the West was lying and Russia was never going to attack Ukraine. So with Russia announcing that its troops are pulling back following the completion of exercises near the border with Ukraine, Moscow has insisted that predictions it could be just moments away from ordering a full-blown invasion have been proven false. The day Western propaganda failed. Wow. Here's a clip from Face the Nation exactly a year ago. This broadcasted on February 20th. I just want to share what the Russian ambassador to the United States was saying 4 days before the full-scale invasion.
We go now to Russia's ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov. Good morning to you, Ambassador, and thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting.
I'll get right to it. President Biden says that President Putin has decided to invade Ukraine. Is he correct?
There is no innovation and there is no such plans. it was fixed in Russian documents that we conveyed to our American friends in the State Department. Russia has publicly declared its readiness to continue the diplomatic efforts to resolve all outstanding issues. Russian troops are on a sovereign Russian territory. We don't threaten anyone.
So with a straight face, he says that Russian troops are on sovereign Russian territory and they're not threatening anyone. This is already a proven lie even before the invasion, because there were Russian troops in Moldova, there were Russian troops in Belarus, there were Russian troops in occupied Crimea, and even Russian troops, I'm sure, already inside the Donbass region. So no, they weren't on sovereign Russian territory. They had completely surrounded Ukraine, and the plan was always to invade. That was Russia's plan all along. Everything else was a lie. I also want to share a tweet from this idiot, Edward Snowden. At one point, I respected what he did, exposing US surveillance. It was wrong. He was a whistleblower. But rather than go to jail and be a political prisoner that would have been eventually pardoned and released, just like Chelsea Manning, he instead chose to flee to Russia and take sanctuary there. And over the last 8, 9, 10 years, he's just become a Kremlin stooge, a propaganda mouthpiece for Putin's regime. This is what he was saying a year ago. So if nobody shows up for the invasion Biden scheduled for tomorrow morning at 3 a.m., I'm not saying your journalistic credibility was instrumentalized as part of one of those disinformation campaigns you like to write about, but you should at least consider the possibility. So on February 11th, this is a week and a half before the invasion, there is nothing more grotesque than a media pushing for war. So of course, there are agents in the Kremlin leaking intelligence to the West that Putin is actually going to invade Ukraine. Biden made public statements before the invasion saying Putin's actually going to do it. We've seen the satellite images, we have the intelligence, we know this is happening. And meanwhile, Edward Snowden is saying it's the West, warmongering, provoking Russia somehow to do it. And to prove the ultimate hypocrisy of Edward Snowden and people like him, Twitter is blocked in Russia, so he's allowed to use Twitter using a VPN with permission from the Kremlin. They don't have freedom of speech, they don't have freedom of press. This guy got his fame from exposing US domestic surveillance, and Russia is the ultimate surveillance state. Big Brother is watching you. This guy could just shut up and not say anything, but he still, to this day, tweets statements of support for Russia and critical of the NATO alliance helping Ukraine. Screw this guy. So what has Putin been up to? He's giving a speech to the Russian people in the next day or so. And Putin personally pardons Russian prisoners who fight in Ukraine. So we're already at the 6-month mark when Prigozhin and the Wagner group started recruiting people from the prisons, promising them they'd get a full pardon after 6 months of fighting. Putin actually did it. He's been pardoning these prisoners. But that doesn't mean they're free to go. They're going to be staying in the Wagner group until they die or Russia wins this war. And Russia's not winning this war, so there's really only one option for these guys. And like I said in every video, I could play one of these every update video I make, but here's another clip of Russian mobilized men filming a video saying they're being treated terribly. I'll include it in the pinned comment down below if you want to watch it for yourself, but basically these men were trained for weeks as artillery men. They were then sent to Ukraine and then told that no, they're not going to be artillerymen, they're going to be infantry. And they don't want to be infantry fighting on the front lines. So this is what they say. Sometime after arriving here, they started taking us to training grounds to be retrained as infantry. After a few trips, they began demanding money for fuel from us. If we don't chip in on fuel, this would mean we don't need training and are ready for combat on the front line. So these men are being extorted by somebody, saying that you have to pay us cash for fuel. If you don't, I guess you don't need training. We'll send you to the front lines immediately. This is how the Russian military operates. This is how they treat their men being forced to fight. Blackmail, extortion, lying. These men need to surrender if they want to live. And let's check in with Lukashenko. I don't talk about this guy much. He's an idiot. He's always trying to get attention and make headlines, but he's completely irrelevant. But I guess he invited President Biden to Minsk for peace talks, and Biden's not going to Belarus, but Putin didn't like that he said this without permission, so Lukashenko flew to Moscow to kowtow to Putin.
Александр Григорьевич, спасибо, что согласились приехать. Ну, действительно.
Я мог не согласиться.
Мы все занятые люди. Дел хватает и дома, я понимаю. Вчера, кстати говоря, смотрел вашу пресс-конференцию.
Чтобы не смотрели, расстроились, наверное.
Нет, почему? Нет, почему? Я
уже мне в плюс.
Разделяю ваши позиции и подходы.
Their interaction with each other is so weird. But this video is noteworthy because somebody observed the wild movements of Putin's limbs. So his right arm grips the chair to stabilize, but look at what his legs were doing during this interaction.
Так что даже здесь миролюбивым странам, в кавычках, не удалось нас так зажать, что лучшие умы, как они говорили, сбежали из наших стран. Так что даже...
Lots of speculation on Putin's health. I don't think he's going to die anytime soon, but there's definitely something wrong with him. And somebody made the observation that Putin's current energy seems to match a previous famous dictator.
Так что даже здесь миролюбивым странам, в кавычках, не удалось нас так зажать, что лучшие умы, как они говорили, сбежали. Так что
So this clip, I think, is from Germany's 1934 Olympics, in which Adolf Hitler was very fidgety in his chair watching the games. Final couple clips I have for you. The first one is of a snowy Ukrainian Donbass. This is a clip from Maria Avdiva.
This is what the weather is like today in Donetsk region. This is Pokrovsk, quite close to the front line city. Very cold, snowy, but beautiful. Ukrainian Donbass.
Ukraine still has beauty. Final clip I have for you is of Ukrainian defenders making tiramisu. It looks delicious. That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments or questions, let me know down below. I'll also include that link to Macer Gifford down below. Till next video, take care, be safe.